Hello, Uncle Kerry and Chat. This is your Uncle Mitch coming to you from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. I think Jackie Chan shot a movie called Police Story 3, or better known as Super Cop, here in Kuala Lumpur. Well, I leave Sunday, and my next destination is Manila in the Philippines. So we'll see you there. Bye.
Hello everybody and welcome into my latest live video. It is Friday, the 8th of July, 2022. My name is Kerry Holzman. Thanks you guys so much for joining me. It's been a hectic week, so there hasn't been any other live streams this week. So if you weren't watching closely, you didn't miss anything. I hate when that happens, when the week goes by as quickly as this does. I don't know how we got to Friday so quickly, but hopefully be back on a more productive video schedule here. May not be till the week after next. A whole bunch of stuff going on, which I will talk about when that's appropriate. In the meantime, happy Friday. Thank you guys for hanging out and joining with me. And a super thank you to Peter Lycock, who contributes, as always, a 50-pound contribution. He says, good evening, Kerry. Everyone in the chat, all the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 62 degrees Fahrenheit or 16 degrees Celsius. Hey, Peter, thank you so much for your continued generosity and, more importantly, your friendship. And also Winston Liu. Winston contributed 10 Canadian dollars late last night when I first created the stream for scheduling, and then just now with another 10 Canadian dollars, and he says this is more from the Vancouver Canucks NHL team. All right, well, thanks Winston, as always. And hello to all my friends in blue joining me. I've opened the chat room up to everybody just to see what happens today, and trying to train the bots, the spammers, and the ne'er-do-gooders to learn that to stop trying. After there's an old story of circuses tying up elephants with a little tiny rope when they're attached to one leg when they're babies, and I don't know how true it is, but the story goes that after the baby tries so many times and fails to break the rope or pull the stake out from the ground that the rope is attached to, they just stop trying. And so, as the story goes, there are full-grown adult elephants that are kept in place with that same little rope because they've learned as a baby not to try it anymore, and they never try again. So again, I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm trying to see if the same holds true with these bots, spammers, and other subhumans that are on the internet. We'll see if they're that simple. In the meantime, thanks you guys for hanging out with me today. I've got a build. Of course I have a build. I am working my way through my backlog. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm under 20 machines now, which, you know, making really good progress. Shipped a couple computers off this week, 3 last week, and I'll hopefully be able to ship at least 1 more this week. This one that we're going to build today is an i9-11900k using the B560 HD3 motherboard. I've got this Sabrent 2 terabyte NVMe drive that came out of something. I think I was using it in something myself, but we'll use that in this build. We got 32 gigs of RAM, 3200 speed. This is a great price over at Amazon today, 85 bucks for 32 gigs. That's a really good price. And I'm eagerly anticipating installing the new Mugen 5 Revision C because I want to see what I did there? I want to see what they did with the mounting options, because they made it socket 1700 compatible. And that's the difference between Revision B and Revision C. If they did what Noctua did, then these are going to get kicked to the curb. What Noctua did is they make you assemble the whole bracket, which is very confusing because it's compatible with 4 different socket types, and there's 3 or 4 different types of little plastic standoffs, and the instructions aren't very clear with not only what standoff you're supposed to use for which socket type, but which direction they go, along with which direction the back plate goes. You could put the whole thing in wrong and it will work, it just won't work optimally. what was the benefit to the Noctua cooler, that N12S or U12S? What I liked about it was a very simple plug-and-play installation, and it was a bit more money than the Mugen 5. And then when I ordered a bulk of some more of those, there was nothing on the Amazon website that indicated that this was an updated or changed cooler in any way. They might have just added some fine print that said socket 1700 compatible. Well, I've only built one socket 1700 motherboard, and I still have around 20 socket either 1151 or socket 1200 boards or AM4 boards. So for me, the Revison B cooler and the prior version of the Noctua cooler were more valuable to me. But be that as it may, I am hopeful that Scythe will give us two completely assembled brackets, one for socket 115X and 1200, and then one for socket 1700. I mean, they are charging about $5 more for this cooler in the black edition than the Revison B in the black edition. And I'm hoping that extra $5 is going to pay for that additional bracket. If I have to assemble the bracket, then the remainder of these that I have are going to get sent back to Amazon because I'm working on a bigger scale. As you can imagine, with 20 more machines to go, having to assemble 20 brackets is easily adding multiple hours to the labor time. And these computers lately are being sold under or less than what they cost me to buy the parts. And it's through your contributions and your support that I'm even able to make that possible. This system will be offered for sale. It'll go in a Corsair 200R case with everything you see. It's all high-end stuff. One generation behind. It's not a 12900, but an 11900k. And it'll sell for, I'm going to guess, about $1,000. We're at about $350. I just want to round some prices up. $350 for the CPU. The motherboard, when I bought them, they were $90. The RAM was about $100. The 2 terabyte Sabrent drive was a little over $200, but today they sell for like $185. Anytime you can get a terabyte of storage for under $100, that's a good deal. The cooler $65, the case will be $65. Then there's about 10% sales tax added up to all that. Anyway, this isn't one I'm super desperate to sell because it's not depreciating anytime soon like some of the older hardware that I've had that I've been, quite frankly, taking a bath on some of it just to get it out. But hopefully the people who receive it appreciate the deal they're getting, and as a reward, I hope for them being a member of the community and having a piece of the channel, right? Some commemorative, collectible computers. There's a lot of C's in that. Carrie's commemorative, collectible computers. All right, let's see. Let's scroll through the chat, see what I'm missing here before we get into working. Mark Baggett contributes $5. He says, happy Friday. Robert Kachna with a €5 contribution. Thank you to Mark and Robert, both of you, for helping to support the channel, keeping us going here. Okay. I think I'm ready to get started. Should we put the cameraman to work? The camera human?
I'm my cameraman.
Camera wall?
Person.
Camera person? Do you identify as a camera? All right, so we need to give it just a second for the wireless transmitter to handshake with the wireless receiver over here, because the camera is wireless. And we made some adjustments to the camera last time I was live, so hopefully everything's going to look nice and sharp on this camera, assuming it picks a good channel. As long as it doesn't pick channel 8. And right, No, is it?
Yeah.
We have a problem with channel 8. There should be an up and down button next to the channel. Go ahead and press that. Tell me what channel you're on. Go to channel 1, let's say. And let's see if they'll sync up on channel 1. Yeah, there's got to be a way to change this.
Channel 1.
Okay, now that shows channel 1 over on this side. You've got channel 1 there.
Yep.
All right, let me switch over to that camera and see if it is functional. Let's see, that's camera 3. Okay, here we go. Nothing. Wait a minute. It says it's linking. No, it lost the channel. Now it's on channel 1. All right. Come on over. It looks like we're still a little dark. I keep having issues with... I'm spoiled. The bigger, more expensive cameras that I use, I have a larger sensor. The larger sensor works better in lower light. The smaller the camera is, the smaller the sensor is, the more light it takes. So this is one of my older original Canon Vixia, which one is that? G30s?
G40.
It's a G40, and I've got my eye on a Canon XF705, but it's $7,000. But that's not one you would carry around because it's much bigger, much heavier. But I'm thinking I would use that as my main camera, and then I'll have the other cameras. These 3 cameras, the main cameras that I'm using, added up, cost the same as that one. But got to keep growing. I got to keep making the channel, got to keep it current. So maybe if I get it from B&H Photo, they have something called a Paybu credit. And with Paybu credit, they'll pay the sales tax, which is about 8.5%, I think. So it's about $550 in sales tax. Or you can get 0% interest for 12 months. So I'm shoveling my money away. I gotta have it. I like nutty. Yeah, there you saw Mitch sent us that video. Actually, he sent that last week because unfortunately I didn't have access to the video. I have a couple different email addresses and only one has permission to access the Google Drive. So hopefully we'll get another video from Mitch here really soon. I think he's left Kuala Lumpur and is on his way to the Philippines, isn't it? Yeah, so, and I see somebody in the chat joins us from Kuala Lumpur as well. I just saw Madi Yoel joined us and just became a supporter. Hey, thank you, Madi. Mark Leonicio with a $5 contribution says, good afternoon from Las Vegas. Good afternoon, Mark. It's nice to have somebody in my time zone. I saw somebody in the chat wrote good afternoon at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, it's not afternoon here. All right, should we get to work?
Let's get to work.
Tell me what to do. All right, well, any flagship CPU always has this pretty inexpensive box it comes in. The 12900s now, they went back to a larger packaging. The 12900 chip is still darn near $600, over $600 with sales tax. So I'm not even buying any of the flagship chips that are over $500. They just depreciate too quickly. Those 11600Ks I've been boasting at $215. I bought a couple of used ones at $185, and now, not 2 weeks after I bought them, Amazon's selling them brand new at $189. That's a heck of a good deal. When you consider the difference in price between an 11600K and a 12900K, and what you're paying per gigahertz or per frequency, it is a much better bang for the buck on the 11600K. Although very rarely in life can you buy the top shelf anything and get good value. Whether you're looking at top shelf vodka, which may be in every way similar to a very discounted, Smirnoff or something, people pay for the exclusivity, to have something not very many people have. Some people actually do have a legitimate reason for having a processor of that nature where they're making money with the computer, and if the computer can get more done in a day, then they make more money that day. But let's face it, there's very few of those people out there, certainly very few of which would even be watching YouTube videos. After all, they're busy making all that money so they wouldn't need advice from me. But I did stock up on a couple of these, and I bought these when they went under $500, and now I think they're around $385. So I've lost over $100 by buying these and keeping them on a shelf. But you never know. You never know, especially with things going on the way they are, where there could be shortages of parts, like we've already seen with GPUs, and it's a little bit of a gamble. And I don't want to be in a position where I need to make a computer and I don't have the parts, or I can't get the parts. So it's part of the expense of doing business. Thankfully, I only bought 2 of them. I didn't buy a case or anything, or that would have been a significant financial loss. I had recently purchased some of those little Be Quiet Pure Rock Slim heat sinks. They were $34.90 at Amazon. I ordered 4 of them. Then the price went to $29.99. So you think, well, it's only $5, but now wait a minute. I ended up taking those 4 and sending them back to Amazon, because that's a $20 savings. So if I just bought one, again, when you're going at scale, those price differences add up, and it basically was almost at a situation where I was getting one for free at that point with that price difference and that quantity. So anyway, it's pretty nice. At least when I ordered there's a new book, a Rick and Morty comic book compilation that came out, and I pre-ordered it. And when you pre-order books off Amazon, and I wish they did this for other things, but they guarantee you're going to get the best price for the first 30 days or something. So not even 48 hours since I received the book, I then got an email that a $1.34 credit was posted to my account because the lowest price had gone down by $1.34. Anyway, I wish Amazon did that with all their stuff. In the meantime, I'm pretty good on coolers right now. And of course, my thanks is always to Ryan in Nevada, who recently sent me one of these Mugen 5s and one of those Pure Rock Slim coolers, just to show support for the channel. And a shout out to Ryan for his ongoing and continued support as well. All right, I'm really anxious to get into the Revision C Mugen 5 and see what they've changed. So we're going to start over here, and we'll set this stuff aside. This box says it's a 4 terabyte, but I'm reusing this box. It's a 2 terabyte drive that's in there. Just so it doesn't cause any confusion for people. I think this is the box for the 4 terabyte drive I put in my laptop. And a couple other contributions have come in. Let me give a shout out to these generous folks. We've got Scott Hallinan contributing 5 New Zealand dollars. He said, here's some money to pay for the camera person, whoever it is. And Steve H with $10 says, happy Friday, Carrie. The PC you sent last week works great as a media center and a backup PC. Thanks again. Right on, Steve. Well, thanks for the contribution. Thanks for giving me an update on how that PC is working for you. You certainly waited long enough for it. And Scott Hallinan out there in New Zealand, thank you as always for continuing to support the channel. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and cut the plastic on the I/O shield now. Let's get this out of the way. And we've got the 2 M.2 screws in these bags, which I like to put onto the board so that the end users don't lose them. And they will lose them. So as long as it stays on the board, anytime they want to do an upgrade, whether they're doing it, someone else is doing it, or I'm doing it, trying to find these super teeny tiny screws is an experience best avoided. So I do things for my customers they don't even know I'm doing, and will never likely ever know unless they're watching these videos and see the explanations behind these actions. I've certainly worked on enough computers where customers have lost the spare parts, and as a result, it caused what should be a 10-minute job to become a multiple-day job, looking for, then ordering parts, then waiting for those parts to arrive. And at least now I'm not doing it on eBay where parts could take 4 weeks to arrive, since a lot of the eBay sellers for this electronic stuff are all coming out of China. At least when you're sorting it by price, they are. I was looking for a 6, like a B660 or something equivalent. I mean, we were using the 360, the 460, and now the 560. I was hopeful that Gigabyte had a 660, but there doesn't seem to be one that exists. And the boards that I'm seeing available for 12th gen, they're just, the price is just too high. The benefit of these boards was their price and their reliability and how upgradable they are. They don't have any RGB, they don't have an I/O cover. You know, they've got 4 RAM slots, we've got 2 M.2 sockets. And speaking of which, let me go ahead and take one of these little M.2 screws. Make sure we're using a magnetized screwdriver. That is going to make your life so much easier. And don't listen to the people who are still living in 1974 telling you that magnetized screwdrivers are bad. You let them know it isn't 1974 anymore. Say, okay, boomer, and move on. There's our 2 terabyte Sabrent drive. It's going to go into the socket. I like to use the socket closest to the CPU just for ease of access to the other socket when that day comes that somebody wants to add another NVMe drive. Especially if there's a graphics card here. Trying to get to this area is very, very difficult. So as a habit, once again, I do things like this. My customers don't even know that I'm... There was a method and a madness, and it was done with a thoughtful intention. And it's just one of the added touches that that customers receive. And I also do that for myself because, quite frankly, I'm hoping that I'm going to be the next guy who works on it. I love to work on my own stuff because I know it's put together very well, and I know like the cable management isn't all interwoven where everything has to be undone to remove one thing. But if somebody else has to work on it, they can hopefully appreciate and be inspired by the work I do. And they'll say, gee, every computer should be built like this. Maybe if I build them, I'll do it this way too. Kind of trying to lead the path here to better quality builds. It's not just a matter of plugging stuff in, but thinking ahead with regards to how you're going to maintain it, repair it, upgrade it. You take a few extra minutes now, it could save you hours, even days later. And again, working at scale versus just working on one, but working on 100, you can imagine how that can add up to some very frustrating time, especially if you're self-employed and you're not earning any revenue while you're trying to find an M.2 screw. Chris Garrett with a $10 contribution says, hope you're staying cool, Kerry. It's a bad thunderstorm right now in Georgia. Yeah, we're into 113 today, and it should stay in the 100 and teenage range this whole week. It's too hot. I'm ready to go back to Michigan. Let me see what we haven't reached the peak heat of the day, so it's not 113 yet. 106 right now, but during the next 2 hours, it'll be over 110. Hey, there's our friend Rick Lakes, contributes $10. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for that. Should we put the doohickey in the thingamajig? All right, so here's our $385 processor that I paid $489 for. Nowadays, if you buy an 11900K, there's just put in a regular cardboard box. Only the flagship processors are put in the fancy containers. So once the 12900K was released, then manufacturing switched over to a traditional box. I mean, technically, this is all they have to do to pack it. This is all we need. And I'm just going to push this all back together and Be a nice little decoration somewhere. So the documentation and the Go Faster sticker are in here. And there's some tape right there, which enables us to unfold this origami. And there is our 11900K. The price of this could buy you an Xbox or a new stove. Well, I suppose not now, but what I paid for it. Okay, so let me just clear this out so you have a better view. We'll turn this towards you, and then I'm going to lift this up and pull it back. Then I'm going to take this CPU out. There's little notches in the plastic so we can grab it by the edges. If you pay attention to how I hold my parts, you'll see I always hold parts by the edges. By not touching any of the gold connectors and by keeping my fingers off the top of it, I'm accomplishing two things. One, keeping both the bottom and top free of any oils from my skin. This helps the connection on the bottom, and this helps the heat transference from the top. Also, I don't have to worry about an anti-static strap, because if there were to be a static discharge that I let loose, it only goes to a grounded area. So handling the parts properly just makes life so much easier and less complicated. If you feel better wearing an anti-static strap, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't. I am saying that it's optional if you choose to handle the parts properly. Or you can do both if you're extra cautious. And I'm going to gently set that into one corner and then just let it down. And I'll grab the edges, see if it wiggles. Do not press down on it. That's what this does. This lid comes down, and then when I push down on it, it's going to push the CPU onto the pins beneath and pop this little cover off. This little cover, you have to hold on to this, because the motherboard manufacturer will not accept this board back with a CPU in it, and they will not accept it if you don't cover those pins from damage. So that's a good way to void a warranty. And I'm going to just put this stuff in the motherboard box, put that in there, and I'll put this, all the documentation goes in here. Okay, now let's see what Scythe has done with the Mugen 5 Revision C. Oh, this is the exciting part. You excited? Mike McRae contributes £8.99. Thank you, Mike. Cheers, mate. All right, here we go. My very first time unboxing this. I have no idea what the changes are. So my reaction is going to be genuine, as if you would get anything else. First of all, we have our box, yikes, with our Scythe screwdriver and all the mounting hardware and cheat codes. I mean, directions. And then on this side of the box, we've got the fan, which is the last piece we put on. So far, everything's packaged exactly the same. They haven't changed anything there. Okay, I mean, everything, the heatsink is exactly the same. There's been no design change, nor was I expecting one, but I've been so blindsided by unexpected changes now, I'm starting to notice things I would normally not even think about. The rest of this is an empty box, and we can put that right over there. Psych. So this is the part I'm interested in. I don't want the cheat codes. Let's go over here and let's see what they're giving us in our bag of tricks. Oh, we only get one bracket. Wah, wah. So what has Scythe done? It looks like they've made the bracket adjustable. And I'm going to guess it's going to be socket 1700 positioning with these screws. Let me just double check that. Let's grab the motherboard here and see if it will align. Yeah, you can see socket 1700 is just a little bit wider. Can you see where the screws and the holes are? How it's just a little teeny tiny bit wider. So the good news is, what that means is one bracket is all you need. It's just the bracket's going to be a little bit larger. And then what's got to happen, and again, I'm going to do this without looking at any documentation because I'm cool like that. We've got looks like four positions that this screw can go into. And at least they give it to you one way so you know which direction everything goes. Noctua. And I don't know which corner. It doesn't matter. It may not matter. What I'm going to do right now, just to run a hunch here, is I'm going to move every one of these screws, which are currently located on the far side, closest to the edge. I'm going to move them towards the middle. And I think there's only two positions, despite the way it initially looks. And there's a slot cut into the bottom of this, and that's going to go hug that screw and hold it into position for us. So this is not a big deal, but it's definitely a little bit more than just taking the bracket out and popping it in. On the other hand, when I start building more socket 1200 machines, then I will be able to just pop it in without any adjustment. So this is just the interim, the middle, as we go from one socket type to another. But that socket 1700 stuff is still too expensive as far as I'm concerned, especially for the difference in performance that you get in return for your investment. Now, in theory, those should be in the right position now, and I should be able to just put that in there. Easy peasy. And you'll see the screw, there's holes for the screws, and they're on the other side too, as is the cutout here for the third screw. So it can go on this way, or you can turn it 180 degrees. It still fits exactly the same. So kudos to Scythe for keeping it simple. I am a big fan of simple. In here we've got brackets. We've got lots of brackets. Oh boy. So this seems like these two brackets are nearly identical. See, look at these two. Notice how they only have one hole position? That's got to be for socket 1700. This, how you see how there's four hole positions? That's got to be for the multiple socket 115X, which is also socket 1200, 1150, 1151, 1155, 1156. Now, in this bag here, okay, we've got some standoffs. Notice there's a little rubber grommet on the bottom. We're going to put that with the rubber side going onto the motherboard. And it's going to fit real snug, and it's going to hold that back plate into position for us. And this process should be the same on a socket 1700, only moving the screws is the only difference. And then the only other difference would be which of these brackets. These brackets here, these are used for AMD. Since these are different, these are not ones I've ever seen before, that's got to be for socket 1700. See that? Don't need cheat codes. And then these are the wire hangers for the fan. And then we've got these really long screws. These are generally used on AMD systems, so we don't need these. And then we have these short little standoffs right here. These go into the CPU socket of an Intel-based X series processor. So we don't use those. Lots of different socket types we're covering here with this particular cooler. One size fits all. And then we take these brackets, as I always have before, there. The raised bit here goes up over the capacitors. You don't want it to sink down towards the capacitors. That's how you know which side goes up. And then they face each other, and if you just go over the lever that I just lifted to put the CPU in, you cover that lever with one of the brackets on a Scythe cooler. And then I can get my Milwaukee electric driver out just to... You should really tighten these by hand, but hey, I'm a professional. Overall, not too bad. If Nacho had done something that minor, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere near as upset as I got. I probably wouldn't even have sent those other ones back. It took me almost a half an hour to figure it out. Now, once I figured it out, after that I could do it much quicker, but it's still a more expensive cooler and it still would take more time to install. So they went on my do not buy list, and hopefully they'll fix that design. I'm talking about Noctua. Scythe, on the other hand, is still doing a bang-up job. I've got a list to all of these parts in the video notes below the video. I have an Amazon account, an Amazon affiliate account, so if you make a purchase, then I make a small commission. I am obligated to tell you that, though it's no secret, and I would assume that you would understand that's what the links are for. In the meantime, if there's something else you want to buy at Amazon, you can still use one of my links to take you to Amazon, and any purchase you make during that visit, I will make a small commission on. You're still going to pay the same amount, your shipping, everything's still the same. And this, of course, is only for USA residents only. I don't have any Amazon affiliate accounts in other countries. Maybe next year, we'll see how things go. I'm still trying to get out from being buried with all these computers. I'm finally making progress. I was at 50 or 60 computers this time last year, and now I'm down to about 20. And once I get all of these computers out, I'm going to focus on other things with this channel, a lot more product reviews, interviews, Q&A, text sessions, chat sessions, and I'll still be building, but maybe no more than one a month, and I won't start another one unless the one I've already started is finished. I won't put myself back into this extraordinarily stressful situation ever again. Now I realize it's entirely possible that while I'm building a system, I have to build a system for a customer. So there may be two that happen, but I'm going to do everything I can to avoid that scenario, let alone 20. Okay, so with our cooler ready to install, I think I want to leave it off because to get this into the 200R, this heatsink is so large, it's going to block our ability to plug in the 8-pin CPU power cable. So we have the RAM to put in. That's super easy. I think I can go grab a 200R case and we can get this installed in the case. What do you think? Should I do that?
Yep.
I don't have a case out here. I poorly planned.
Would you like me to go grab it?
No, I'll get it. Let me take a quick look in the chat, see if I've missed any comments or questions to address here. Boeing 757 pilot contributes $10 and says, I've learned to build my own computer from you solely. Your explanations are thorough and excellent. You are my favorite computer channel, and thank you. Right on, Boeing 757 pilot. Thank you for supporting the channel, and more importantly, thank you for your kind words and support. We have an amazing community here. You see a lot of names in blue. These are our regulars, if you will, and we're always looking to add more like-minded, kind, and supportive individuals. to our community. So I hope if you're watching and not jumping into the chat, you'll give it a shot and just say hello. Everybody's welcome to chat in there today. Sometimes I restrict it because of the harassment that is bots and spammers and subhumans. But so far today, everything's been looking super friendly. We've got 470 people watching live around the world right now. And while I step out of the room momentarily to grab a Corsair 200R case, why don't you give a shout out of where you are watching from? And if you would, while I step out, just kind of look over this board nice and close and do a slow pan. They love the slow pan. Okay, this should be it. I got it out of the box. I'm gonna move some of this stuff. Again, notice how I pick up the board, how I'm not touching any of the circuitry, so I don't have to worry about it. A static discharge, if one were to happen, it wouldn't hurt anything. Static discharge will not hurt a heatsink. And the documentation for the 200R right here, I will throw into the motherboard box, which is over here. Need the I/O shield anyway, which I kept in here. Okay. Alrighty then, let me step around to your side and you can watch what I do. There we go. I'll step over here. I'm going to put these screws in the motherboard box as well. Keep it all together. Again, we get these panels out of the way. These will be the last thing to get put back on, essentially. After everything's been installed, Windows 10's been installed, updated, all the drivers are updated and optimized, all the cable management is done, and then the covers go back on. So it's going to be a while before those covers get placed on. We won't be doing that during this video because I'm not going to show cable management. It's boring, and it's always different. But I will show putting everything in the case, so we'll start with the I/O shield. Let me trade places with you. Come over here. Put those holes for the speakers down towards the bottom, and then this just pushes in. See, a lot of people, a lot of beginners struggle with this part. I've done this about 20,000 times, so that's why I make it look easy, but give yourself permission to take your time. You'll know it's in there right when you get it. Something you just feel for. It's very difficult to explain, like trying to explain how to ride a bicycle. Balance is something you just gotta experience. I've got our front. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to leave all the front I/O there because I can go ahead and put the motherboard in right now. I'm going to lay the case flat. And then I've got the little plastic standoff, which I always have to put on these Gigabyte boards because they have a mounting hole that I have yet to see a case manufacturer take advantage of. Now, normally, if you're watching along and doing all the same things with all the same parts, you can skip this piece. I just happen to have these left over from the 90s, and it's a good excuse to get rid of them. But as long as we're using all the other mounting points for this board, it's not necessary to put that standoff in there. To buy them, you have to buy like a 50 at a time, which seems kind of silly for something you don't even have to have. Then you're going to be in my position where you're going to use them on things just because you have them. So now I'm just lining up. If you go down here, you'll see I'm going to line up those ports with the I/O shield. And I'm being careful not to get the fan power cable there for the rear case fan pinched in there. And then what I have to do is I have to push the motherboard. Once it's aligned, once we have all these aligned, I have to push the board forward towards the camera there. And then the center post right up here, if you come up here and look, there's a center post right there, right underneath my finger. And that goes through one of the mounting points. So we're not using this mounting point because there's no hole in the case to support it. And we're not putting a screw in this mounting point because that is holding the board in position for us. So we'll only put one screw in the middle row, and then two across the bottom, one here and one over there. This motherboard is just too short to get to that third row, so those stay in place. But if this motherboard were to be upgraded in the future to a larger size board, that's what those are for boards that extend out another inch or so. And we want to make sure we can see the standoffs through the holes, and we also want to make sure that there are no standoffs behind the board we can't see. Now, because of my familiarity with these products, I already know I don't have to check that. But if you are new to all this, just count the number of standoffs you have, count the number of motherboard mounting holes you have, and do the math to know if you've got any extra. If you try to power the machine on where there's a standoff touching the back of the motherboard where there is no mounting hole, not only can you not see that, but it may cause damage to the board when you essentially short circuit it when you apply power to it. So that's a very easy thing, but a critical thing that needs to be checked for. Now, when it comes to mounting the board, this case comes along with every new case you buy. It's going to come with the mounting hardware that case requires. So here in the case, I forgot to take it out, is a cardboard box. And what I do is I pull on this lever right over here and pull up on that box and lift it out. In this box are going to be some nylon zip ties, not very many, but I'll take what I can get because I go through a lot of them, along with screws for adding more fans, for securing the motherboard, for adding DVD drives or solid state drives or even hard drives. So that's all here. These aren't generally transferable to other case manufacturers, sometimes, but I wouldn't count on it. That's why I say it's critical that you keep all the parts for your build together. After you're done, you're going to have a lot of spare parts. You're not going to use all those screws. So you want those put away somewhere where you can find them in the years ahead when you want to upgrade or replace something, repair something. They are, for lack of a better explanation, proprietary. And well, it's sometimes you can make other screws work, it ain't right. That's just no good excuse for that when you could just simply put the extras you have away. When you get rid of the computer, then you can get rid of the screws. So all in all, there's going to be 5 screws holding this motherboard in, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top, and that one in the middle. Normally, I wouldn't recommend tightening these screws all the way down. This one right here is usually the toughest one. I'm feeling pretty bold today, so I'm going ahead and letting this go to its normal torque setting of 3. When the screwdriver hits that torque setting, you hear the screwdriver turn off. It's a $200 screwdriver. Cheaper ones don't do that. It's not important that they all be torqued to the same, but it keeps my OCD happy knowing they are, that there's a consistency throughout, and that is mounting the board. So if you blink, you miss it. This is easier than Legos, folks. And let me just take a look up through the chat room here. Tim says he's watching just outside Seattle in a town called University Place where the temperature is sunny and 73 degrees Fahrenheit. You want to trade? 73. Badgerland Dan says it's 67 degrees Fahrenheit in Wisconsin. Oh, I got to get back to Michigan. Protevis says greetings from Missouri. Carl P says great stuff watching from the islands of Bermuda. Right on, Carl. We'll make sure you're blue in here. I don't think we have many people watching from Bermuda. John Williams also joins us from Madison, Wisconsin. Arto Rasenin from Finland and PC Fishing in San Francisco. Peter Laycock, of course, in Edinburgh. Scotland, am I pronouncing it right? Speaking of Scotland, in Aberdeen, Bonnie, Scotland, is Mike McRae. It's Mike McRae. Don't do that, Gary. Never do that again. Ah. No, sorry, I had something in my throat. Ah! Mark Gaines joins us from Northern Ireland. Don't do it. Don't do it, Carrie. Ah! Oh, that doesn't work. Luke Greenia, our good friend Luke Greenia, watching us from, as always, Vermont. Martin Postama joining us from the Netherlands. Vern Mahorny in Olathe, Kansas. I know he's told me how to pronounce that several times. Do you know how to pronounce O-L-A-T-H-E? Olathe? 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 Olaf? Isn't that the snowman in Frozen? You know you're old when you sound like your parents. What's that movie you kids like? That's Trek Wars? You're on the Facebook and the TikTok. Everything's the. I got to get on the Facebook. I like to do that on purpose just to mess with people. Greg is watching us from Florida. Mahdi, of course, is also in Florida. The Florida. He's in the Florida. You know Florida, that's heaven's waiting room. God's waiting room. All right. Let me pick this up. And let's put a power supply in here. Now this would make for a really good gaming computer if we slapped a video card in there. And the question is really for whoever buys this computer, if they intend to making a gaming computer, then you definitely want a 750 or 850 watt power supply. I don't recommend the modular power supplies. People always lose the cables. Unless you've got like a glass case and you want to hide as much cabling by removing cables you're not using, then it makes sense to go modular. Otherwise, save your money. As for what power supply we use in this build, I have, these were on sale. This is an NZXT C650, so 650 watt. And this is fine if you're going with a lower end GPU, by the way. It's a 750 if you're going on to the higher end. And then with the new 40 series GPUs from NVIDIA coming out, you want to go 850 or above. Normally, I'd probably just put a regular 500 watt EVGA in here and be done with it. However, due to the nature of it being an 11900k, I think we could go a little above my baseline, something a little bit more powerful. Really good warranty on these. I haven't used a lot of these NZXT power supplies, but what I have used are still running today, and I've been very impressed with their quality and overall design. All right. My knife. I still can't get over why that's so dark. Well, that's something else. When I get rid of all these computers, when I clear this place out, I'm going to spend a lot more time, because I'll have the time to start messing around with these camera settings. Also, if I do get that $7,000 Canon XF705, your job might get harder, because I might take one of the XF400s, which Canon doesn't make these XF400s anymore. They're already obsolete, but they're quite a bit heavier. I don't know that you'll like that. I'm sure this camera can do what we need it to do if I spend some time configuring it. I think a lot of people oversimplify what it is to make videos on YouTube, and if it is oversimplified, it looks like I shoot it on a potato. Just look at my old videos, listen to them, and look at them, and look at how the quality has improved. Not only did I get better with understanding how to configure OBS and settings, the cameras are so much better now. So I can just imagine, well, I can hope that that super high-end camera would be even better and probably make this one look even worse by comparison. But like I said, there's always ways to manually tune things to optimize it for the environment. All right, here's the unboxing of the C650 bronze NZXT cooler. I do not have, I don't have the link updated for this. I thought I was going to use an EVGA in the video notes, so I'm going to change that a bit later. Salvatore Cognetta says, hello, Kerry. Staten Island, New York. Love your show. Well, thanks, Salvatore. Staten Island. There's a What We Do in the Shadows joke in there. Staten Island. That's how they say it in the show. Olathe. Richard says it's Olathe. 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 I'll never remember. You got to keep reminding me. After about the 20th time, it'll sink in. I'm a little thick. There was a question in the chat and I've lost it. Somebody was asking what video card I would put in. It's not my decision to make. If a customer wants to order the machine, they can order it with whatever video card they want. Depends on how the machine's being used. If your monitor's only going to support 1080, it doesn't make any sense for you to put a lot of money into a graphics card that'll do 4K. So, you know, definitely something 20 series or 30 series. I stay away from the AMD video cards because I've had nothing but problems with their drivers. So, but this is something the customer ideally would add themselves. I don't want to ship a computer with a video card in it. Too many have been broken. The thing is, when these video cards break, there's nothing physically you can see wrong with them. They just don't display video correctly. It'll get all jaggedy, and the card has to come out. RMA has to be created. It's got to get sent back to the manufacturer. Then you got to wait a couple weeks. Then they send you another one, and the one they send you may not match exactly because with the graphics card shortage. Well, for example, Madi's blower style 2080 Ti had to be sent in. It got damaged in shipping, and they sent them back a 2080 Ti with the 3 axial fans on it. And he's like, "This isn't the same card." Yeah, it is. They'll send you back an equivalent or better. They just don't have those blower style cards anymore. So I would leave it up to the customer to pick whatever video card they want. And if you're going to go to a 3070 or above, I would put in a 750. If it's 3060 or below, then this 650 is just fine. So in the box, this is what it looks like. We've got scanned for what? Documentation or product catalog? I don't know. This power supply, which I thought was not modular, appears to be semi-modular. Okay, didn't realize that. Look at how they package that. That's kind of weird. So semi-modular, they know you got to have motherboard power, so they give you the 2 motherboard power connectors. All the other cables are for options like video cards or solid state drives or hard disk drives or other things that might require power, but those are things other people might opt not to have. So you only plug in the cables you need, and as I mentioned, since everybody needs motherboard power, those are already connected for us. The downside of that is if the power supply were to go out, then we have to undo the cable management for these 2 cables to get it out. If these were modular, we could unplug everything from the back of the power supply, pull that power supply, and then replace it with the exact same power supply. Some of these cables that plug in, these modular cables, they do not work from one power supply manufacturer to the other. In fact, they might fit and they might just blow your stuff up. So I don't recommend mixing and matching. You've got to keep that stuff segregated away from other things to ensure that you're not going to run into compatibility issue. So in this bag here, as I mentioned, is the rest of our modular cables. They plug in back here if you want to get a close-up of that. And of course our main power cable. So I'm going to set this aside momentarily. Yeah, I guess that QR code must be for the product documentation because there doesn't appear to be anything else in the box. You know, there should be some screws. Now that I think about it. Yeah, there are some screws in here. I like how they put a plastic bag inside my plastic bag with a plastic bag inside. So there's our screws for the power supply. We can use the screws that came with the case, but if the power supply comes with screws and those screws match the case color, I prefer to use those. And then these are the modular cables, which I don't think I need to use any of these on this build. So I'll leave them in the bag and customer can get that. Also, if the customer does want to put a higher end GPU in and they want to order the computer from me with a larger power supply, it's easy enough for me to swap the power supply out before I send it to the customer. So once again, if I step around, hey, there's Marty. Marty contributes 20 bucks and he says, hello, Carrie and chat and everybody. Hope everyone's having a good Friday, a great Friday. The fans on the bottom of these power supplies, they draw air in and then out the back. When you hear people obsessing about their temps and they're putting a lot of fans in their computer or liquid coolers, all this other nonsense, it makes no impact on your power supply. One of the single most important parts of your computer is often overlooked and ignored when it comes to cooling. Now the power supply can go in upside down with the fan drawing the hot air in the case in through what would be the top and out the back. And that is necessary for some cases that don't have any airflow on the bottom. These cases, as you can tell here, the 200R, see these holes down here? There's a little filter. And you should check your computer. If you're not sure, check it and see if you have a filter. Because where there is a filter, that is where air is being drawn in. We don't filter exhaust air. As you can imagine, I've run into people who are so smart they're dumb, meaning that they will obsess about their CPU temps, they'll obsess about their GPU temps, they'll obsess about their airflow, and their computer will be randomly shutting down. Finally, they break down, they bring it to me once they've given up trying to figure out what's wrong, and I pull out their screen and it's completely clogged and they've been suffocating their power supply the whole time because they're so busy looking to their left, they're not acknowledging what exists on their right. So if you don't go extreme on any of your cooling and you are fair and balanced in all of your cooling, then I wouldn't need to tell you and I would have no further issues with people suffocating the power supply. So please don't suffocate your power supply. Now to put this in on a 200R is super easy. I'm going to set it down right here and then push it all the way against that motherboard tray. And then I'm going to push it all the way to the back here so it lines up. And then I can secure it with those screws right over here. Is this like record time for a build for me? Without all the squirrels?
Record time for me holding the camera.
How you doing? You holding up?
A little sore.
I am? Well, okay, well, we'll give you a break here in just a minute. Gotta work on that upper body strength. All right, let's see. One goes offset. One screw is offset away from the corner. It's not going in straight. This one will go down here. This one will go down in this corner. See, it's not, when the screwdriver shuts off early, it's preventing me from cross-threading. So for whatever reason, I'm having a hard time getting these aligned properly. So I'm going to give it the beans. Force it through here. And that's all there is to installing a power supply. And now we can plug in the power cables and then finish putting the heatsink on top of the CPU and hook up the front umbilicals and do our first power on self-test. Record time, I'm telling you.
We're down to 60%.
Well, I better get to work then. Okay. So we'll start these. I'll step over here so you can see me. We'll start with these two cables. Once again, every motherboard needs these two cables. And we got the big one right here, and that's got to go there. And then we have CPU power. Oh, and they gave us one for the video card. That's usually modular. That's new. It's a different design. In order to hide these cables, I'm going to run them out the back. We'll run this one also out the back. And then I can go ahead and take this wire tie off and free up our front port umbilicals. And I'll come around the other side and I'm going to pull those front board umbilicals out through the back. Once again, we want to hide the cabling, not so much for looks, because again, this case has no window on it, but mostly so it's easier to work on. You won't have all these cables blocking your way or interfering with whatever work you're trying to do, whether it's a repair or an upgrade. This just keeps life easy and optimal. So I gotta put that extra 4-pin connector on like that. And we'll bring that down and around. Well, that was really hard for me to see. There we go. Okay, and then the CPU power cable. That's going to be this one. We're going to run that right up into this corner. Sometimes you have to wiggle it and try different angles. It's a super tight fit with some power supply connectors on the 200R. There we go. And then I need to just plug that in right up there. Connector goes towards the outside edge with this motherboard. And then I'm going to push the slack. See how clean it's already nice and clean. with that connector on, oh, this fan right here, just to hook it up, we can go right up here. It's a 3-pin fan, and it goes on a 4-pin connector, but it's got a little notch in it so you know how to align it with the proper 3 of 4 pins that are there. I'll wire manage that later. Just want to keep this moving. Now I can lay this flat. We get our thermal compound, and we're going to just put a dab on here. Do yourselves a favor and don't obsess over thermal compound, and do know that the people who do obsess about thermal compound can talk to their doctor about that, because they do make pills to help you with that now. The technochondria that exists with this is an epidemic on the internet, and I just don't want you to become a victim of it. It's extraordinarily contagious. Knowledge is power, and nothing speaks more clearly than experience. So those of you who are fascinated with thermal compounds should run your own tests by applying different thermal compounds in different ways, and then running your burn-in test to see what your maximum temps are, and you're going to find that your maximum temps aren't going to be more than a 2 or 3 degree difference, which is the allowable variant for the ambient room temperature anyway, making any change negligible. Unless you're an extreme overclocker or something like that, there's no reason for you to worry about what type of thermal compound to use or how to apply it. However you want to apply it is fine. If you put too much on, it doesn't work very well and it makes a mess. If you put too little on, it doesn't work very well. This is the only way, by spreading it out and by tapping on it, I can ensure that the entire surface of that heat spreader is covered equally. And of course, once this all heats up, it'll get to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it reaches a certain temperature, it becomes kind of viscous anyway, and it starts to flow. It becomes a bit more like a liquid. So just bear that in mind. The properties of it change when it gets hot. There's a little plastic cover that's keeping the surface, this mating surface, completely free of any dust or oils from the skin. We leave this on until we're ready to install. And since we are ready to install, we can go ahead and remove that. Yes, I have fixed computers where customers have built it themselves and left that tape on, and they never experienced an overheating problem. So, like I said, a lot of people make a bigger deal out of CPU cooling than what the realities justify. When I put this down, you see how this connector sticks out? That's the side that has to face the RAM, because that's where the fan's going to go. So I initially put it on upside down. There we go. And then that long screwdriver that Scythe included with this cooler, where did I do with it? Because I need it right now. Where did it go? Did I put it in the box? Oh, I have extras. Maybe I put it in the drawer. So what I want to do is I just want to start this side, just get it to align, just give it a couple turns, and then we're going to come down through this hole in the top. That's where the other screw is, and that's screwing down to the center hole of the brackets that we installed earlier. And we want to kind of tighten these down evenly. So we'll turn this a little bit more, we'll come over here, turn this one a little bit more. Just like when you're putting a tire on a car, you want to do opposite corners so that you don't have any, if one side tightens down too much, then the other side kind of warps it. It kind of becomes crooked, and you can't tell by looking at it. You have to physically take it back apart, and you can often see if there's been no contact made with the thermal material. And that would be bad, okay? Okay. Finally, we have the little hanging brackets for the fan. So this is all the same if you've seen any of my other Mugen 5 installs. This side of the fan, this is the side the air comes out of. This is the side the air gets drawn in. Where there's the bare blades, that's the side that's pulling air in. We want the air to get pulled in from the front, blow it out through the heatsink and out through the back. Same orientation as the rear case fan. I want this cable to come out closest to the connector on the board. I think I can just zip tie that just as it is. And that's a lot easier to do that now. Here's one. It's interesting to me that when you buy a name brand case, you actually get nice nylon zip ties. And when you buy those cheapy cases, oftentimes the nylon zip ties, when I pull them tight, they just snap off in my hands. So even that makes a difference between a budget case and a name brand case. Cut those pigtails off of there. All right, so I'm going to put this in this way with the cable coming out that side. So I need one of these fan hangers. Put one here. And you see how it fits on there pretty tightly. I was complaining with the smaller Pure Rock Slim from Be Quiet, where these things just fell out. So it's not that difficult to design the fan in such a way that it just adds a little bit, where the holes are a little bit tighter so it can hold those brackets on for you. One of those I had sent to a customer, they said that when they received it, the fan had come off. So luckily it didn't cause any damage and he was able to put the fan back on. So my concern with the Be Quiet being that loose was justifiable and happened on the very first one I shipped. Okay, so now that's on. Now we can pop the RAM in. We're going to use the gray sockets, and we've got gray RAM. Here's our RAM right here. If you can get 16 gigs of RAM for $50 or less, that's a good deal. Today this is $84.99 for the gray T-Force 32 gig 3200 speed RAM. DDR4, it's a good deal. Amazon Prime Day is July 12th and 13th. So what is that, Monday and Tuesday or something? Tuesday and Wednesday? Shouldn't it be called Prime Days? How come Prime Day is 2 days? Anyway, maybe I'll do some Amazon videos on Prime Day. If time permits.
45 minutes. 45 minutes.
45 minutes of what?
Camera.
That's a long time. Put that one in. The RAM can only go in one way. And we always skip a channel, or skip a socket rather. It'll work if it's side by side, but you'll have two single channel sticks of RAM. If you have dual channel, it's higher performance. It's very minor though. It's not a major performance difference, but it's just a matter of putting it in the right slot. So why not take your time and do it right? That's all I'm saying. Finally, we can hook up our front port umbilicals, and then we can turn this bad boy on and see if it works. What do you think? Think it's going to work? Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. Oh wait, no wagering. Sorry, there's no wagering. There's our front audio. That's for our front keyboard. That's for our front microphone input jack and headphone output jack. Some cases combine those into one jack. Let me come around here so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so HD audio, there's a pin missing. This connector on most micro ATX and ATX board goes somewhere in this quadrant. I see it's already right there. There's no clip or anything. The missing pin is on the bottom on this board design. And just align it, and I kind of wiggle and push until it sits flat against the board. And you see I had that little gap right in there with this case and this power supply, so I'm able to hide that cable a little better with this case design. Back around, we've got our USB 3.0. That's for the two USB 3.0 ports on the front of this case. Should be able to run that through there. And then when I come around, this has a little notch, so it only goes in one way. It's a little notch right there. And there's a little cutout in the socket right there. So you line, wiggle, and push, and it seats in there. Don't over tighten this cable. You will bend and break that right off. So when we do cable management, we gotta keep this looped out a little bit so there's no pressure on that. I really don't like that design. They should have known better. Finally, the last cables we've got are our front port umbilical cables. That's gonna be our power switch, reset switch, power LED, and hard drive LED. I just want to make sure that these cables are not interwoven like this. That's driving me crazy. So if I make sure that there's all separate now, cable management is less frustrating later. And then I don't hook up this front case fan. The 200R comes with a fan in the front and a fan in the back. Unless we've got a graphics card installed to blow air over, I just leave that as a hot spare. Otherwise, all you're going to do is make no difference in your case temps, but you will draw in more dust, and it will require you to have to blow the computer out more often. Now, when it comes to hooking up these front port umbilicals, I always start with the hard drive LED. It says HDD LED right on it. These connectors always go on horizontally. We do not connect the top and bottom row ever. We start on the bottom row with the positive cable, which means I have to put the writing upside down on a 200R. It goes on the first two pins on the bottom row. What goes beside that is the reset switch. So we look at these remaining wires. This one says reset SW. Well, there may be indications for positive and negative. They are irrelevant. So I put the rest of these with the words facing up, so anybody working on this computer in the future can see what those are without having to remove them and read them. The power LED is always separated because some motherboards separate out the power with a 3-pin connector. Basically, you've got positive, a blank pin, and then ground. This board, and most boards these days, you're going to put the positive and the negative close together, and it goes exactly above the hard drive LED, positive cable above the other positive cable, the negative cable above the other negative cable. So now we're going to be on that top row, and I can't see anything. I think I was on the wrong, yeah, I was on the upper row before. These just push on. Once again, when we do cable management, we don't want to get these too tight or they'll pop out super easy. So it's always good to make a little loop, kind of push forward on them and then put your cable tie on them. Finally, this is our power switch that goes right beside the power LED on that top row. And that's it. Now I'm going to grab a power cable, plug that in. I need a keyboard and a mouse, which I have over here. I just charged these up last night. These rechargeable keyboards and mice, they last me a good 4 months between charges. Okay, so there's keyboard and mouse, and then let me plug the USB dongle here for the keyboard and mouse back here. And we need video, so down here on the floor of all cables, we'll grab this. This is running to the video capture card in the streamer. And we'll plug it in right there. Now, if you look at the back of this board, look at all the connections we have. This is another reason I really like this board. You've got a PS2 slot connector for old school keyboard or mouse, 2 USB 2s, DVI, VGA, HDMI, and DisplayPort outputs. So no matter what kind of monitor you have, no adapters are going to be needed. You can use 2 of these at a time. I haven't tried more than 2, but last I heard it was you can use 2 at a time. And then we've got 4 USB 3.0s or 3.2s, whatever these are. Built-in gigabit LAN. There is no Wi-Fi on here. And then you've got surround sound. We always use the green for speaker output for standard 2-channel stereo sound. Red is usually a microphone. And that's it. I'm going to flip the switch on. And we're ready for our first power on self-test. So I am going to give camera person a break here, and we're going to go back over to camera 1. You're clear. Thank you. Wow, what a difference in the picture. Holy cow. I really got to work on that camera. Let's turn it this way. Let's go to HDMI input, and let me make that input a little bit smaller so you can see me. Move it over there. And I'm going to hit the power button. Power light came on, so that's good. That means that it's turned on and the LED's hooked up correctly. And then there should be, in just a minute, we should see a power on self-test screen. Now, it could take 90 seconds to 3 minutes for that very first power on to happen. The BIOS has to train the CPU and the RAM, and then it'll save a setting and then reset itself, which is what it just did now. And then it should take us right into the BIOS. Now, before the show started, I went ahead and downloaded the latest BIOS for this board, which is F13. I've been sitting on these boards for a few months, and I know they're well out of date, and I'm going to put the BIOS update on before I install Windows 10 Pro. But that's how easy this stuff is to assemble, and it shows just how fast it can be done. I'm not even rushing. Normally, because it's such a simple task, I'll often engage in conversation with the chat, which ends up making my videos, you know, several hours longer than the actual work requires, but that's what makes it fun for me. It did take us into the BIOS, so what I'm going to do is grab that flash drive and plug that in right now so we can start the BIOS flash. I'm going to keep all the spare stuff together. Okay, what did I do with the BIOS? Didn't I just have it in my hands 2 seconds ago? What did I do with it? Okay, time for my glasses. Alan Lindas contributes $7.77. He says, Carrie, it's time for a cold $7.77 Gatorade. Enjoy. Well, right on. Thank you, Alan. As soon as I find my BIOS flash drive, which was just... What did I do with it? Andy wants to know how do you find the BIOS file from the zip? When you extract the zip, and you will extract it, just look for the file of the largest size. Normally, the file will have the BIOS name, like Gigabyte, for example, will put .f13 on F13 BIOS. Other manufacturers may put it in the actual name itself, but it's the single largest file. Everything else is super tiny, and in the BIOS itself will be the big file. So look for the big file, that's your BIOS file. It's pretty simple. This is crazy. I was all prepared. I had it all ready to go, and now I can't find it. So what good did all that do me, huh? Puzzled. Oh, it's up here. Duh. All right, let me plug this in. I knew it didn't get up and walk away. I'll plug this into any USB port in the back and just give that a second for the BIOS to recognize it. And then what I'll do here is go full screen. There we go. So we can see what BIOS we have currently, which is F7. We don't need to put in anything but the latest BIOS. They're recursive. Each one has the one before it. So just the latest one. Unless the motherboard manufacturer specifies anything different, you typically just go to the latest and greatest BIOS. We go over here, oh, wrong mouse. I'm gonna go over here rather, to QFlash, update BIOS. This is the only drive that's formatted. Remember that Sabrent NVMe drive, that's not formatted, it doesn't have Windows on it. And there's only one file on the flash drive, so I can't pick the wrong one. Are you sure? Yep. Needs to verify that that BIOS is compatible, so it verifies it. And it says over here, you're on F7, you're gonna go to F13, press to start right down here. Now this is important that you leave the machine alone. Don't mess around with it. Don't even so much as move the mouse around. Walk out of the room if you're somebody who's antsy, and you sit on your hands if you need be, or just leave this alone. It's going to reboot up to 3 times in this process, and it's important that you allow it to do what it needs to do without interruption, or you could brick your motherboard. This only takes a couple minutes. I know you've got it in you. You can sit on your hands for a couple minutes and let the machine do its thing. Sometimes we'll get the option to update the backup BIOS. All Gigabyte motherboards have a dual BIOS. I don't know what triggers the option for the backup BIOS, but if I ever see it offering me to update the backup BIOS as well, I will always check that box. Of course, it will take twice as long since it's going to flash 2 BIOSes. But it's not that important if the backup BIOS gets updated or not, so long as you have a backup BIOS if you should ever need it. It's mostly for overclockers and people who do a lot of experimentation with their computers. If you're the kind of person that orders a computer and doesn't tinker around with it, you probably end up with a computer that lasts longer and is more trouble-free. The people who do tinker, though, do get an education in what not to do. And that's pretty valuable if it's something you're going to do for a living or you're going to help friends out, so that you're not causing more harm than good when your intent was just to help. I see that a lot. I see a lot of people who think they know enough to help others, and then they start harming others. And then I shouldn't complain, because then they call me and I have to fix it. And that pretty much paid for my car. So keep helping other people. Obviously, you want to make sure that if you're helping somebody out, and understand, please, that if you're going to go through the effort of volunteering your services to help a friend or family member, then accept the responsibilities if you break it. If you don't want to accept those responsibilities, politely decline or do not offer to work on it, because you may be causing that person much more grief and financial harm, even though your intent is, I'm going to make it better for you. Be prepared that if something goes completely wrong, that is your financial responsibility, even if it means taking it to a professional to have them fix what you did. If you're not willing to do that, the right thing to do is to not offer to do it to begin with. Okay, we're at 98%. We're almost done. It's going to automatically reboot in 5 seconds. I'm not touching anything. It is completely still hands off at this point. And the system may reboot multiple times. It may only reboot once. It varies from model to model and manufacturer to manufacturer. Don't be worried about it. Just allow it to do what it needs to do. So in just a moment here, we should get another post screen. And don't try to do anything to improve this process. All you can do is make this worse. All you can do is make it take longer. There is absolutely nothing you can do by touching it or manipulating it in any way that doesn't impact this negatively. So if you want this done as quickly as possible with this little chance of error, you let it take whatever time it needs to finish what it's doing without being disrupted. So here we go. You can see that the Elgato capture card is saying no signal. That means the machine has rebooted. And in just a minute here, because it's a new BIOS, it retrains the CPU and the RAM all over again. And then it may reset again after that. So we're just going to keep an eye here on this Elgato screen. There we go. There's our first, well, there we go. We did it once. We can see on the screen up here in the top left that we are using BIOS version F13. What I like to do is press F7 to load the optimized defaults. And then I like to go to advanced mode, which is F2. I'm reading all that on the right here. So F2. Then I'm going to go over to settings. I'm going to go over to miscellaneous. I'm going to go to Intel Platform Trust Technology. This is the TPM. I'm going to disable that so that this will become Windows 11 by disabling this, we are not compatible with Windows 11. We're doing that so that Windows 11 doesn't install on its own someday when the customer just turns the computer on one day and finds they have Windows 11 and have no idea how it got there. So while the system is fully Windows 11 compliant, I disable the TPM module, which Gigabyte is calling the Intel Platform Trust Technology, or PTT. Same thing. And we'll scroll over here to save and exit. Press enter and press enter. Okay, now I grab my Windows 10 flash drive. And I'm going to wait for the BIOS to come up one more time here before I touch anything. And there we go. I'm going to pull the BIOS flash drive out, put the Windows 10 installation media in, and then I'm going to hit reset on the front of the computer. Now the only thing this computer can boot from is that Windows 10 installation media. That internal storage drive has not been partitioned, it's not been formatted, there's no operating system on it. So if this machine wants to boot, and it does want to boot, I don't have to direct it where to boot from. There's only one boot option, and that's the Windows 10 installation media. And once we've got the installation screen, you know this process by now. We just go through all our standard options, as we always do, making sure that we leave the internet unplugged from the back of the computer, and we select we do not have a product key. Even if we do, we tell it we don't. Our product key will be for Windows 10 Pro. It's only going to have one option on where we can install. So once I accept the end user license agreement, I always choose custom install. No matter what, I always choose custom. It says drive 0 is 1863 gigs. That's 2 terabytes. That's the only drive we have to install to. If I was going to put 3 or 4 drives in this computer, I would not hook up any of them but the one I want Windows installed on, so I don't have to make a decision here. Now I hit next, and now it's going to create those multiple partitions, format those partitions, and then install Windows 10. At this point, it's just a matter of a couple minutes of waiting for the process to complete, and while we're waiting, if you guys have any questions for me, please fire them away in the chat room, and I'll do my best to provide answers. And if any of you know the answers or want to make a suggestion, I'll love to see you guys helping each other out. Let me minimize this a little bit here so I can see ya. Hey, there's our friend John Jack Wilson joining in the chat. He contributes $50 in Super Chat and says hello all. And of course, our Uncle Kerry. Hey, right on, Jack. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for your continued generosity. Samuel Ramos with a $20 contribution says, Kerry, it's nice to see you again, my friend. Right on, Samuel. Thank you. Appreciate your kindness and support as always to the channel. Peter Laycock says he just sent me an Amazon gift card. Such a generous guy. Thank you as always, Peter. Let me check that here in just a minute. Let me just get caught up with the chat. Getting ready on our first boot up of Windows 10. At this point, well, it's still installing. It no longer needs the flash drive. I could pull the flash drive from the back if I want to. I normally just wait for the whole thing to finish first. Looks like it's rebooting again. Again, this is just the whole Windows 10 installation process. And on a modern, fast machine like this, it only takes a couple minutes to get Windows 10 installed. It's pretty nice. Well, let's take a look here. Oh my gosh, Peter Laycock. Are you feeling okay? I don't even know what to say. You know, I've got my eye on that video camera, and Peter's gift card has gone a long way to get me to that goal. So, holy cow. Holy cow. Don Dry contributes $10 via Amazon gift card. Right on. Again, I'm going to be just starting to hoard these Amazon gift cards until I have enough to pay for the camera. And I don't even know. I don't even know what to say here, Peter. It gets pretty bad when I'm speechless. I don't know. It says card 3 of 4 and 4 of 4. My goodness. Oh my goodness. You are something else, man. I don't know how you found my channel. I'm so glad you did. Let's just finish up the build here so I can change the subject. I just don't even know what to say to that. All right, so United States, yes. Keyboard layout will be US. We're not going to do an alternative language keyboard layout. Whoops, let me go back. I meant to hit skip. And then I'm going to say I don't have internet. If you do have internet right now, it's going to force you to create an online account with Microsoft. And then I'm just going to put the username of user in here with a blank password. And then that should, I like to turn these settings off. That should be all we need to do now. And now it's going to, and Cortana. So no to Cortana. Now it's going to finalize the installation. Paul1961 asks, have you ever had a pre-built laptop as when you want to do a clean install defaults to Windows Home? Yes, I've covered that. We've covered that in depth. There's a modification that you can make in your Windows Media to change that. And I can't think of what the file is off the top of my head, but if those of you in the chat remember it, please put a link. That's for Paul1961 in the chat. David Rivera says, Kerry, thanks to your videos, I upgraded my 8-year-old PC, installed all new components along with the software. I love the case, so I kept it, and thank you. Right on, David. Well, we'll make sure you're blue in here. Thanks for sharing your story with us. I'm glad that I'm glad that you took that task on and were successful, got the experience, and saved a lot of money. Ron Barnish says, no Amazon gift card today. My Visa card was compromised and I'm waiting on a new card. Ooh, that's scary when that happens. We're all good. There's, look, when people support the channel, they give Amazon gift cards or super chat contributions. It's never expected. It's like a tip. Never expected, always appreciated. The money does go back into the channel. When people wonder why I don't do videos of some kinds of hardware, it's because I'm not accepting the sponsorship offers that these other channels take. When you accept a sponsorship offer, you're essentially agreeing to make a commercial. If you guys like to sit around and watch commercials all day, those big tech channels with the millions of subscribers, most of their content is paid for and approved by the sponsors that are paying for that content. So they are mouthpieces for the corporation, and that's their business model. That's what they want to do. Even every Newegg video you watch is paid for by the sponsor. If you're wondering why you see certain manufacturers over and over again, it's not because the content creator necessarily prefers that brand. That's the brand that's paying them. As a result, there may be some reason to not show any of their competitors' products ever, because you wouldn't want to upset the company that's writing you the checks. For me to be purely independent, for me to buy the stuff that I show here is really just a side of my regular business. I don't sell computers to people based on what sponsors make available to me and then tell my customer, here's what you can pick from. I wouldn't run a business that way, but that seems how most large YouTube channels are run. They're being paid for by sponsors, and that's not a bad thing, but it does mean that the content is filtered and pasteurized by, or homogenized by, the manufacturer to be what they want it to be, not necessarily what the creator wanted to create. If I was an artist and I was showing you how to paint, and I started just showing like Campbell's soup cans, you can best believe it's because Campbell's Soup is paying me money for that. To me, I feel kind of bad when I hear a jingle on the radio that's a commercial, that's somebody in a band and that's the best gig they could get. So on the one hand, they're doing what they love doing, which is playing their instruments and singing, but on the other hand, what they're singing may have been written for them, it may not be their work, and they're more like puppets than they are artists, in my opinion. So for me to have the freedom, first of all, to review and evaluate the parts I'm truly interested in and to be outspoken and honest about how I feel about them without any negative repercussions, like I upset the sponsor and now I've lost that future revenue from that sponsor, I don't want to go down that path. And one of the reasons I don't is because every single big tech channel does that. And that may be a reason I never get to be big. People want to watch commercials. And people in general don't want to pay for the content. As long as you want to watch advertising, the advertising's paying for it. I try to keep the advertising minimal here. And when I do have sponsorships, they're few and far between. We have good friends over at Acronis, good friends at Roboform, and of course our good friends over at VIP CDK deals. And if you're looking for a discounted, legitimate, legal Windows 10, Windows 11, Office 2016, Office 2019, or Office 2021 product key, use the discount code CARRY, you get 30% off, 100% guaranteed, but you must use the key within 30 days. Just like any other product, you've got 30 days if there's an issue for customer service to either replace it, refund it, whatever they're going to do. Please don't buy the keys and hoard them and then use them in 4 months, find out they don't work, and then contact customer service. There's not much they're going to be able to do to help you at that point. So please purchase the keys when you need them. The chances are they're going to work just fine after 4 months. The problem is, what if they don't? It's no different than buying a big screen TV at Best Buy, and you take it home, put it in the garage, and then you go on vacation for a month, you come back, you open the TV up out of the box, and the screen is cracked. You load it back up, you haul it back into Best Buy. They go, well, you've waited more than 30 days. You're like, but I just took it out of the box. That's how you sold me a broken TV. Back of your receipt specifies the return policy. You have 30 days, regardless. It's not from you decide to take it out of the box. Warranties start the day you buy the product also. So if you're somebody who's buying a computer piece by piece as you can afford it, your warranty's already ticking away. So by the time you get all your pieces together, depending on how long that takes you, there's that much less warranty you have, and you'll likely be beyond your 30-day return period if any of the other product that you purchased that's been sitting there waiting turns out to be dead on arrival or has an issue. You'll still have the motherboard or the manufacturer warranty, and you'll deal with the manufacturer. You'll pay to ship it back to the manufacturer, not to the retailer, and then you'll wait some more for your replacement product to come in. Nothing wrong with any of that, just have proper expectations. If that's the road you want to go down, then that's what you can expect to be prepared for in a worst case scenario. There's Ryan contributing $2 Canadian. He says, we have a major internet outage up in Canada. How come? You guys getting adverse weather? I didn't think they were getting them. Let me finish up our Windows 10 install here. Let me go back over to full screen on this. Where's my... There it is. Okay. Just to get rid of this, I'll click Get Started, even though there's no internet plugged in. I'm going to tell it not to show me this anymore, and hit Cancel. I'll hit Complete Setup, continue without signing in, and of course we're not connected. Now I can unplug the flash drive for Windows 10. We're done with that. I'm going to step around and plug the internet cable into the back of this computer, and then we can start downloading Windows updates. And we'll get back to chatting here together once I get these updates going, because they will take a few minutes. This is a service I do for my customers that no other manufacturer I'm aware of does. So if you buy a computer from pretty much anywhere else, you can expect to spend 3 or 4 hours once you get it unboxed and hooked up, doing all your Windows updates. And then you're going to be left with a ton of temp files that, even when manufacturers do set things up, they leave all the temp files on the drive. You could probably clear out several gigs of wasted space being taken up by temp files on any brand new build you buy, unless it's coming from Uncle Kerry, because he clears all that out for you. I do things other builders don't do, and that differentiates me from competitors. They're not really competitors to me. The people who know, they buy from me. The people who don't know, they don't buy from me. This is the best way I can explain it. Boss says hello in the chat. Welcome in there, boss. Robert Cross contributes €5. Hey, thank you for that, Robert. Where are you watching us from? Naboski, he wants to know if I've done a build in the Corsair 4000D. I think I've done 4 builds, 3 or 4 builds in the 4000D so far. Did one about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's a nice case. It's expensive for me to ship that case, but other than that, I like it. Robert Cross says he's from Ireland. Well, right on. Well, thanks for joining us here. We've got Northern Ireland, Ireland, and viewers in Scotland. Paul Cleaver says, Kerry, did you see my super chat at the beginning? It does not show a super chat from you since the beginning, unfortunately. Oh, after an hour after the beginning, it shows you contributed £5. So it looks like I missed that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Dave Hall just became a member. Yes, if you become a member, it's $9.99 a month, and there is going to be some members-only content, including members-only giveaways, coming up here within the next couple of weeks. And those who aren't members won't even know those giveaways took place. So just so you know. For people that live outside of the US, it'll be like Windows keys or Office keys and stuff like that I'll be giving away. Membership has its privileges, and I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. Michael says, someone I know got that Asus Vivo book that you reviewed a while back, and she said it's so much better than her old Dell, and she loves it. I think for the price, was it around $600? It's a great deal. Granted, you're not going to be upgrading the RAM. It's not possible. But for most people don't upgrade their computer during the entire time they own it. So it's just a small fraction of people that want to do that. And you'd want to spend more money if you want something more versatile. So I think, we know three of those Vivo books are out in the field, and everybody's super happy with them, including John Jack Wilson. He's the one that we initially got it for, and when I selected it for him, I was like, you know what? I'm going to order another one of these. They're really a good deal. I feel my phone vibrating, so let me see what I'm missing here. Michael Dane sent in $10 via PayPal. Right on, Michael, you're the man. Thank you for that. Tuska Nashville contributes $20. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that first name, but thank you for supporting the channel. It's very kind of you. Let me check on the status of this thing here. What's it doing? It obviously loaded a video driver because everything got super tiny. Pending, everything says pending install. Is it waiting for me to hit an install button here? Sure is. There we go. That should keep it busy for a little while. Okay, other questions for me in the chat? I'd be happy to address any questions you've got with the best answers I can provide. May not be good answers. And of course, if others in the chat have suggestions for solutions, please speak up. And there's, speaking of the laptop, John Wilson says he loves that laptop. And how much do you need to get the camera you want? Right now, so the camera is $6,999 and the tax is about $550. And we're about halfway there. A little more than halfway there. So still have a ways to go. I don't need it right away. I'm going to just hoard the gift cards until I have enough to cover it. And then if it turns out to be a huge mistake, Amazon, I can send it back. And there's a camera below it, the XF. So the latest, the flagship, the main, one of the best prosumer cameras Canon offers is the XF705. There's one just below that. It's the, I can't think of the name of the camera right now. It's $5,000. And I just thought, well, if you're going to go 5, you might as well just get the better one, and it'll last that much longer. These XF 400s that I have here that I'm using today, I just got those 2 years ago, and they're already obsolete. I thought these were the new version when I bought them. And I'm happy with them, but I can't help but wonder how much better my videos could be with better cameras. You can already tell, the videos were a huge improvement when I went to these XF 400s. So now I'm curious, how much better can I still go? I was looking up, what was I looking up just a minute ago? Must be 8K. No, they're not HK, but they're HDR. HDR 4K 60 frames per second. And they encode in X265, which is incredible. That means they can record to SD media. Otherwise, you'd have to use more expensive media for a camera of that quality. Oh, I was going to look up what the other camera was. $46.99 for the Canon XF605. Now, normally I don't like the cameras that end in the number 5 because they have the SDI connectors, which I don't use, but maybe it may be time for me to start stepping up to that. And I was looking at other manufacturers like Sony and Panasonic and JVC. I still think Canon is the best way for me to go. And then so the 605 and the 705. That's about $2,000 that separates them. Amazon says, only 12 left in stock. Oh no, we better hurry up. There is a used one that says it's in very good shape for $5,800. That's a $1,200 savings. But I feel like at this caliber, I really want the peace of mind to be able to return it. And the one being sold used is sold by a third party, so I don't trust it. But you can see it on Amazon if you look up the XF705 or the little brother to that, the XF605. But I feel like that XF605 will go obsolete first. I think that's an older unit, and it used to be the flagship, and now the 705 is the flagship. And they don't make one without the SDI outputs. So the XF400, when I bought it, there was also an XF405, and it was a few $100s more for those SDI connectors, which I don't use. So I was hopeful there was an XF700, but I guess once you reach this level of camera, they're assuming you're going to be using SDI connectors. And the new wireless camera system I've got to test has SDI connectors on it as well, but I don't have any intent of using that as the wireless camera. Let me take a quick look. Pending restart. Okay, let's go ahead and restart our new build here. Get an idea of how fast this boots. Although it's processing updates, so it's not a true representation of how fast this thing really is. Jim KJ3N says his Rebel XTI SLR is still going strong. Yeah, those make good cameras for going live with as well. John Jack Wilson says, would $1,000 help? Will it get us 1,000 closer to the goal? I honestly wasn't expecting any of this to happen. Just letting you guys know that I'm going to just start hoarding those cards until I have enough. It just means we get there that much sooner. So yeah, of course it'll help. Very generous of you. I mean, I feel like saying thank you isn't enough, but I do hope that it isn't a mistake that I order this camera, get it all set up, and find out there's no visual difference in quality. I'm hoping that's not the case. But again, I've got 30 days. I could send it back to Amazon for a full refund if it disappoints me. Andy Kane said he's using a Vivo book as well. Yeah, they're good budget machines. Adib Ali wants to know, what was the Wi-Fi adapter called that you used to use in your computer builds? The adapter did not require any drivers. Is it an internal adapter or a USB adapter? I probably won't use the same Wi-Fi cards anymore because the Wi-Fi standards keep changing, so you probably want to go with something current versus something from an older video. Joe Harney says he built 3 in a row in 3 days. Just got lazy on the 4th one. Hey, welcome to my world, huh? 3D Everything contributes $10. He says, you're a super guy. Right on. Well, thank you, 3D Everything. I appreciate your supporting the channel. And Robert Cross, again, contributes €5. He goes, this will go towards your cameras. Well, again, thank you for that. Unfortunately, the money that's contributed in Super Chat, YouTube takes 30% of it and makes me wait 30 to 60 days before I receive it. However, everything does help. And if I have to wait a couple months to collect up the money to buy the camera, that's fine. I don't need it tomorrow. Paul McIntosh says, I sent you an Amazon gift card. I hope the right email. Email will be my name, Kerry@kerryholzman.com. If you send it to other email addresses, I may not receive it. Well, let's see if anything has come in. Nothing has come in yet, but we'll keep an eye out for it. But you would send to Kerry@kerryholzman.com and just spell it the way it's spelled here on the channel. And again, appreciate the support as we can continue to grow and expand and hopefully continue to get better quality. I might need to try broadcasting in 4K again just to see how the internet's holding up now. Adib Ali says it was external. So the Wi-Fi adapter would be a USB adapter. So they make Wi-Fi adapters for varying Wi-Fi, like if it's Wi-Fi 5 or Wi-Fi 6, and at varying price points. So I've done probably a half dozen video on different Wi-Fi USB adapters. So there's one that's like $20. TP-Link makes it, and it's a pretty basic Wi-Fi adapter for basic internet usage. If you want to do something with a higher connection speed, you can spend upwards of $90 to over $100 for a higher end USB Wi-Fi adapter. So depending on if you want the antennas to be external, that you could move them, if you want the higher connection speed, if you have a higher end router, or if you just want that under $20 basic thing. If you just type in Kerry Holzman space Wi-Fi in your YouTube search, it should pull up a number of those videos. But do bear in mind those older ones are less expensive because they're using older technology. But all of them universally should have support for Windows 10 automatically. None of them, no matter which one you buy, should require a driver on Windows 10. Windows 10 rather should provide the driver automatically. Richard Palmentier puts my email address there in the chat. Thank you. Thank you for doing that, Richard. And Paul McIntosh confirms that's the email address he sent it to, so I should get it in a few. Right on. Let me go back over to Windows Update on this machine over here. And let's go to I got to make it full screen on my side. See if I can change the display settings back to 1080, because that's just too much for these old eyes here. That's a lucky guess. I couldn't read that. There we go. Now we're back at 1080, and I want to get rid of the search highlights, turn that off. We'll get rid of the news and interests, we'll turn that off. And then we go back to Windows Update. Hit download and install on this optional cumulative update, and those take a couple minutes. And then, of course, back over to the chat room. Kenton Morton says, I know someone who would enjoy purchasing this unit. I myself will be building a system this weekend, an i9-12900k. Sounds pricey, but enjoy your build. Take your time and let us know how it goes. I keep hearing my phone. something else come in? Okay. Richard Melville says, Carrie, your video is tack sharp on my 4K display. I doubt a different camera would look a lot better. What we're trying to accomplish with a better higher end camera is better low light performance. You saw the difference between the handheld camera, which is a much cheaper camera, and how dark everything looked by comparison with these higher end cameras. And we're looking for depth of field. We're looking for something that the images will be more vivid and separate the foreground from the background better. And that is all done in the camera processing. And the higher end camera you go with, the more cinematic it becomes. But I don't want to go to a cinematic camera because those are like $20,000 where you start at with the price and just goes up from there. Don't think I would ever go to a cinematic camera, but don't quote me on that. I think it would be a waste for YouTube videos anyway. Unless I find out they can do something that would make it worth it, I can't imagine paying any more than this camera I'm ordering. At this point, spending $8,000 on a camera, is it $8,000? $7,000. That is going to be until something major happens when I can start maybe broadcasting in 8K or holographs, then I'll buy a camera that can do that. But other than that, it's not very often that I buy cameras. And if I do, like these cameras here, someone might argue that the cameras I had before these were perfectly fine. But these are clearly better cameras. The next camera up, this one I'm talking about, this XF705, I'm hoping that ignorance is bliss, and that once we see it in the image quality and the bells, whistles, and features of the camera, that there's no way we're going back to these. On the other hand, if it turns out that they're virtually the same, or you can't really notice a difference between them, I can always send it back to Amazon. But there's things you can read about, there's things you can theorize about, but until I actually have it in my hands and I have experience with it, only then can I know for sure. Here's a Jackson for the Keep Carrie Holzman Happy Fund or the Camera Fund, your choice. $20 comes in, that's from Barry Klein. Right on, Barry, thank you. Yeah, and there's John sent in his contribution via PayPal. Jack, you're incredible. Thank you so much. In the chat there, somebody's telling me that the author, Scott Mueller, who does the upgrading and repairing PCs, has died, but I haven't heard anything about that. And Scott Mueller is a popular name, so I don't know if you're confusing the name. It really bothers me when people send me things without a link to verify what they're talking about, because people these days believe anything. So I just want to verify that the information is real, and if I can't find the information, then I have to assume the information is not valid. So if you have a link to confirm we're talking about the same Scott Mueller, please send it to me. He's a great guy. I met up with him out there in Illinois where he lives during one of my trips to Michigan. And we went to dinner somewhere. And I think he's about my age, maybe a couple years older than me. So he shouldn't be dead yet. Yeah, I don't see anything, nothing at all. So, sometimes people send me information, and without a link, the information is no good to me, unless I can verify it. So right now, without any verification, I have to assume that information isn't accurate or is a different Scott Mueller. Chris's Channel of Technology with $4.99. He says, apply this money towards the camera fund. You got it. Well, that's where all the money's going right now, for sure. Well, I don't need the camera for anything in particular. I do want it. So that's motivating me to hoard the money until we have enough there to make that purchase. So thank you again for everybody who's supporting the channel and making it possible for me to continue to expand the channel and improve the video and audio quality. Oh, let me see how my update's doing over here. It should be about good to go. Yeah, wants to restart. Jason says you can't rent or borrow the $7,000 model. Not that I'm aware of, no. They have a business, Canon does a business lease where there's a $1 buyout at the end of the lease. Unfortunately, they didn't have the 705 in stock, so I don't understand who the lease is intended for. Arnold says, I understand it's important to keep up with technology, but when is enough enough? Well, that's true of anything, right? Like some people buy shoes, some people collect things. The determination of when enough is enough tends to solve itself for most of us. It becomes an issue of diminishing returns on the investment, or the next camera up. These cameras that I'm using are $2,500 a piece. Well, they were $3,000 a piece, but they were on sale for $24.99 a piece. And I picked them up without having to pay a sales tax, which I think is 8.5%. I round it to 10%, so you do the math real easy on that. I saved almost $750 in sales tax. And it was right at the end when B&H Photo was just starting to implement the sales tax as required by law. And the cameras have been great. I haven't had any problems with them. I really don't have any complaints. But I could say the same for the cameras before that, the cameras before that, the cameras before that, and the original SD cameras I was using before that. They end up giving me, for some people, they end up making a huge difference in the quality, and for other people, they don't notice a difference. But it's all about the functionality of the camera, like I say, depth of field, and the vividness of the picture. That is something I should be able to purchase once and use it for several years. So it starts to pay back itself. Imagine how good would my YouTube channel be if I didn't have a camera? How good of a Lyft or Uber driver would you be if you don't have a car? So if you're utilizing some hardware in your career that justifies the ability for you to perform in your career, should you just buy the cheapest thing possible? Like, you're not going to go getting the bigger money on the higher level of Uber because it requires a more expensive car. If all you're going to do is buy the cheapest entry-level car that Uber will accept, then you're fixing how much money you can make per ride. So at what point, when is enough enough? That's just a question we each have to ask ourselves. And it's not costing you anything personally, so what do you care? If the image quality or the use of the camera is easier or better, and it doesn't do anything for you guys, but it makes my life a little easier, it's worth it. Again, we could just get rid of all the cameras and I can just do an audio podcast, right? That will significantly deter the amount of money I can make or the sponsorship opportunities I can have. So in theory, having nicer tools allows me to do a better job. You still have to know how to use the tools and you still have to do the work, but it does make the work, or it can make the work easier, not take as long, and end up with a better quality job with the right tools. You know, if you have a surgeon and they want to buy the cheapest blades possible for your operation, is that the person you want to do the surgery? They might be very capable, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's a good excuse to use cheap tools. So that's my philosophy on it. Badgerland Dan contributes $5. He says, thank you, Kerry, for everything you do. Well, thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for being a part of our community. Richard Palmentier says, I know creators on YouTube that have updated their cameras from using their phones, and it made the viewing much better. Yeah, we don't know until we try what difference these cameras will make. Jose Del Nido says, hello, Kerry in chat from a chilly Chile. Peter Lakecock is saying good night. He says he's been up since 4:30 in the morning and it's now 11:21 p.m. and he's fallen asleep and he'll catch up tomorrow. Right on, Peter. Well, hey, thanks as always. Thank you so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you again here in the chat very soon. HPAD says, I use a Panasonic Lumix GH6 and I usually record in either 4K at 120 frames a second. Well, that would be a waste on my channel. Or 5.7K at 60 frames per second. We don't need to go more than 30 here. We're not doing anything. No action shots here. He said, my previous camera was a Fuji X-T3 and I do miss the colors out of the camera on the Fuji though. Kenton says we need a VR Kerry Holzman. Yeah, be careful, we're moving that way. And Richard says, I'm good to see you wanting to get better audio and video quality for the channel. I think it'll be good and good luck. Thank you, Richard. Jason Urbank says, Kerry, your image quality may improve with a new camera. What I found out over the years is I have to know how to use the hardware to take advantage of its capabilities. This is true, and that's why when I initially got these XF400s, I sat down with them and configured them. I configured one to be the best picture that I could get out of it, and then I just replicated the settings on the other two cameras, and then they had firmware updates. Yeah, these cameras have firmware updates. You want to talk about scary? Try updating the firmware on a $2,500 camera and hope it doesn't fail. These cameras are supposed to be IP cameras too. They're supposed to be able to connect directly to OBS without a capture card. I've never been able to make it work. I got it to work once, briefly, and then it stopped working even though I didn't make any changes, and it made me want to just rip my hair out of my head. Too late. Adam Jet says, Kerry, would you upgrade to the new 40 series of NVIDIA GPUs when they come out? I don't know yet. It'll depend what price and availability they have. I don't think there's going to be any advantage for me personally over the, what do I have, a 3070 in here now? As far as rendering times go, I just don't think it's going to make much difference for me. On the other hand, I won't know until I try it. At this point now, I won't commit to buying any hardware that's not released, because manufacturers may change the specifications or availability or pricing. And I'm usually not the first person to buy new tech. I usually let other people pay that top dollar and wait in those long lines. But every once in a while, sometimes I stumble into an opportunity and I'd be a fool to pass on it. If one of my connections says, hey, I can get a 40 series right now if you want one, here's the price, do you want in? I'll probably say yes, because it required no effort. On the other hand, if it's something I'm considering buying, then I'll wait until there's ample product that I'm not fighting to get it, and ideally that I'm not paying over MSRP for it. Adam Jet says he just got himself a 3060 and he likes it. That's a decent card. Richard Palmetier says, would putting an i5 CPU upgrade help the computer I have? You know, so Richard got one of those veteran giveaways, and all Richard's been wanting to do since he's received it is take it apart, which I don't understand. If there is a problem you're having, Richard, I'd be interested to hear what it is. I think that those computers run exceptionally well. It should boot in under 20 seconds. Your browser should be opening quickly. Is there some function you're trying to perform on the computer? I would discourage you from doing any work on those computers. The idea and the concept when I gave these veteran giveaways away is that we're giving them to people who don't have anything, or what they've got is so old and obsolete and they don't have the means. And I want to make sure that those people got those computers. What I didn't want to do was to send them to people who just wanted something to tinker with while somebody else has nothing and can really utilize it. So my general advice is leave it alone, because if you break it, and the whole reason you were qualified to receive one was that you either had nothing or you had something so old that it was very unwise to use online. So anytime you open it up and work on it, you risk damaging it. Even something simple, mistakes happen. And so my advice would be, if you're having an issue with the computer you've got, let me know what the issue is and I can give you some tips in that area. But I strongly advise against working on it. Everybody can only win one thing. So if you were to take a perfectly good working computer, you get a different CPU, you go to put it in and you damage something, or it doesn't work for some reason, then you have no computer and no way for me to help you. So it's your call, it's your computer to do with whatever you want. But if it was the only one I had, I wouldn't go out of my way to break it. That's all I'm saying. That's my opinion. But again, it's your computer to do with however you choose. Okay, let me go back to this computer over here. Let's see how we're doing on these updates. I think we've got all the updates now. Of course, I'm going to go to VIP CDK deals and I'm going to buy a Windows 10 Pro key to go on here. The Windows 10 Pro key activates without having to call Microsoft. You just put your code in, and once it activates, it ties that activation key to this motherboard. So anytime Windows has to be reinstalled and you choose no product key with Windows 10 Pro as your option of version of Windows 10, the first time you go to Windows Update, Microsoft will recognize this hardware and put the product key back in on your behalf and reactivate it without you ever having to do it again. That's pretty nice. And that's without signing into Microsoft. That's all just happening automatically. With all those updates installed, I mentioned there's going to be a lot of temp files. So I go to storage settings and we can clear all that out. I'll click configure it, turn it on. I would have this run every month, and I'll hit clean now. And this isn't that thorough. So once this is done, we'll also do the old-fashioned way, which is going to the yellow folder down here, go to where it says this PC, right mouse click on the C drive, go to properties, then go to disk cleanup, and then clean up system files. Now it's going to calculate out how much crap we've got on here on a new install with updates. Check every single box. It's going to clear out over 5 gigs. That's even after running storage things. Click OK, and we're going to delete those files. And that is the step Nobody ever does, by the way. No PC manufacturers do this step. And if you've never done it, you could free up quite a bit of hard drive real estate by running this. 5 gigs on a solid state drive is considerable. Paul McIntosh says, I bought an old Gateway desktop several years ago. It had a 3rd generation Intel chip, and I upgraded it. Oh, it had an i3 3rd gen. I upgraded it to an i7 and didn't notice any change in what I was doing. My point is, what do I do with a computer that does not even tax its capabilities? Well, the problem is you're not taxing your capabilities, right? The computer itself, it's like having a super fast car. If you don't drive it super fast, why do you have it? Or if the car can take turns at 40 miles an hour, but you turn green and vomit every time you do it, what's the point in getting that car? It's not the right car for you. So a lot of people, they get caught up in specifications, they get caught up in benchmarks. It's really a form of illness, and it's a marketing technique designed to separate you from your money. Being in business, and I always have to justify return on investment, or ROI, to my customers or potential customers. Anytime I offer them a solution, I have to justify the expense so the customer understands what they're getting in exchange for their money. When you're dealing with a home user, you can sell them a light bulb when they don't even have a lamp or a socket to plug it in. You know, there's the expression that a good salesman can sell ice cubes to Eskimos. So how you spend your money is entirely up to you. I'm not your dad. I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money. But I can tell you I grew up without money, and it sucks. And I don't want to go back to that ever again. And I think it's important that you have some money put away in case something unexpected should occur. Life is chaotic, and unexpected things happen all the time. And so just having that little peace of mind, nest egg of whatever it is, could be $1,000, could be $10,000, could be $100,000, depending on what you would consider to be giving you some peace of mind in case of emergency kind of thing. Having grown up with, you know, parents that basically didn't have any savings accounts and living paycheck to paycheck, I had enough of that lifestyle. I do not want to go back. If you like that lifestyle, doesn't matter to me. But when I'm spending my money on things, it has to be justifiable. I don't generally buy something just because I want it. There's got to be a reason. Well, and it depends how much money it is. If it's a couple of bucks one way or the other. But if we're talking about hundreds or thousands of dollars, it's got to show me some return on that investment, some potential to make that worthwhile. Some cases I don't know, like with this new camera that I'm talking about, I don't know yet. If it turns out that there's no added advantage that I can discern, either from the viewer's perspective or from the camera operator's perspective, I just send it back. So that's a huge peace of mind for me to be able to stick my toe in the water and see if that's beneficial. The worst case scenario is it is beneficial and I need 3 of them. So hopefully that doesn't happen, because that'll get super expensive real quick. I'm gonna just grab another cold Gatorade. We're gonna get ready to wrap up today's broadcast because, as you can see, the system is pretty much done. I need to run the optimizer tool and get a product key for it. As always, if people are interested in buying any of the machines you see here on the channel, I do want to let you know time is of the essence. If you wait more than a week, chances are this is already gone. It doesn't hurt to ask, but just be prepared that things happen quickly in my world. This machine, with that power supply, what did I add it up to? Do you guys remember?
5,000.
I think it was under 1,000. Let me just think about this for a minute. 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 850, 900, 920. It's about a $900 build. It's going to cost about $110 to ship it. It's going to put it right at $1,000. Wi-Fi can be added if we want to. We can change the storage if we want to. We can change the RAM. We can customize it to meet your needs. We can put a DVD drive in it. So if you're interested in any of that, reach out to me at my email address, carrie@carrieholzman.com, and that's how you can reach me for any business inquiries. Ryan contributes $2 Canadian, and he says, yeah, he's still no internet up there for many people in Canada with no ETA on when it's going to work again. Well, at least you got your phones. I'm sure the phone works, right? And Richard says, I'm retired and just view YouTube videos and check emails. It's light use, so I don't need the fastest or the best, and I'm grateful for what I have, and it works. Remember, what's fastest and best 4 or 5 years ago may be what you have today. In other words, what's fastest and best is it's always changing. It's as bad as fashion, you know, what goes in and out of fashion so quickly. Even your lower end i3 and i5 processors today challenge some of the i7s of years past. So the difference now for most average users between an i5, an i7, and an i9 is almost imperceptible. They're not going to type any faster. Their emails aren't coming in any faster. Their internet's not any faster. Their storage didn't get faster. And they themselves aren't doing anything any faster. So, again, you spend your money how you want, but that just seems like you could have used that money to go to a nice dinner. You could have enjoyed that. 3D Everything contributes again, $20, and says, thank you for all that you do. Well, right on. Well, thank you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Once again, any final questions for me, I will do my best to provide answers for you and encourage anybody who might have a solution watching in the chat, participating in the chat, to also feel free to answer any of the questions. It's good to give people options and choices. Ian McLeod wants to know if a new CPU will walk the dog. And not yet. I'm still waiting for the dog that I can upgrade the CPU in. Joe Harney says, I don't have any questions, but the GPUs came down in price. Yeah, they're going to come down some more. They're still recovering. We got 414 people watching live right now, and thanks to everybody for hanging out with me today and joining us on some of these builds. Are getting a bit repetitive because it's a stack of hardware that I've got to get through it. So you'll probably see 4 or 5 more of these B560 HD3s before I'm done. Paul McIntosh sends a $25 Amazon gift card. Right on. And already Dave in Wisconsin is asking me about this computer, and now I've got a link here to the Scott Mueller obituary, but it shows it's Florida, but he lived in Illinois. I don't think this is the same Scott Mueller. It's a very common name. And as far as I know, Scott still lives in Illinois. So whoever this Scott Mueller is in Florida. It says they were 64 years old, and I don't think Scott is 10 years older than me. There's a lot of Scott Mullers. Yeah, I don't see any information verifying we're talking about the same Scott Mueller. And like I said, he lived in Illinois. He didn't live in Florida. Not to say he couldn't have moved, but I'm hopeful that's a different Scott Mueller. Andy Kane wants to know, how many systems do I have left to build? What did I say?
About 20.
About 20, right? John Williams says, have a great weekend, and all in chat, good night from Madison, Wisconsin, where it is 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, John. Rogers Network down across Canada. Yeah, we don't have Rogers out here, I don't think. You ever heard of Rogers?
No.
Yeah. I wonder what happened. Oh, my computer went to sleep. Lawn Dog says he likes the case. Yeah, the 200R is my favorite case. You've got 4 toolless drive bays for 2.5-inch drives and 4 toolless drive bays for 3.5-inch drives. And you can fill all 8 bays up and never have to turn a screw. No drive sleds, no drive rails to lose or break. It's simple. The only bad side about the case is no room for liquid cooling. I suppose you could put like a 140 millimeter liquid cooler in the back, but why bother? But the case is nice and deep, so every cooler I've ever put on here fits. And it's easy to work on. And it's a timeless design. This case is always going to look like a computer, and it's always going to look like a current computer, versus the RGB stuff and the gaming stuff, which is not going to age well. It's going to be like looking back at an old yearbook photograph where you're like, I don't know what I was thinking. Look at my hair, look at my glasses, or look at whatever I was wearing. If you're somebody that goes through a lot of computers, that's not important. But if you're buying it and you intend to keep it for a long, long time, all those things that you find appealing today, you might be getting on your nerves in a few years. I've had people complain that they can't get the RGB lighting off and it lights up the room, so they have to shut the whole thing off and unplug it from the wall. Things that people bought initially where they thought it was a good idea, turns out it can be very difficult to live with. I've seen RGB software cause blue screens where computers have come in for repair, and it was because of the RGB software. So when you enter into this added expense for these unnecessary items, there could be a downside to that. But to each their own. It's whatever you like and whatever you want to spend your money on is okay with me. But there may be consequences. You should think it really through before you spend that extra money for unnecessary things, and what the potential is for additional workload, cable management, and other things to break that will eventually have to be repaired or dealt with. The fewer the items you've got and the less items that are to break, the more reliable the system is, and the cheaper the system is as well. So again, when working at a scale, when you're building 100 of them, saving $40 on each one could be paying for a couple other computers. It could be like getting some computers for free at scale. Richard says, thanks for the content and thanks for the advice. Right on, Richard. Well, thanks for hanging out with us and being a member of our community here. Always happy to see you in here. Joe Harney says, thanks for the good show. It's not the builds I'm here for. It's the community of wonderful people in you. Keep building, Carrie, and telling good stories. Right on. Hey, there's Scott Adams. Scott received a bought one of the computers, right? We'll make sure Scott is blue in here. Right on, Scott. Welcome in. Good to see you, my friend. Hope the new computer works well. Should be dead quiet, super fast, and ultra reliable. Should last for many years without a problem. Of course, if you have any problems with it, you know how to reach me, and I'd be happy to help you as I can over the phone. I think that's going to wrap it up for me for today. We're just a few minutes away from 4 o'clock, just shy of a 3 hours, isn't it? What's my time on here? I've lost it. Yeah, we're just shy of 3 hours. I'm trying to keep my broadcast between 2 and 3 hours these days. And yeah, this gets us right on par with where I need to be. So thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. And super thanks to John Jack Wilson and Peter Laycock for those amazingly generous contributions, and to everybody who's contributed in Super Chat as well, including Robert Kachna, Mark Baggett, Madi Yoel, Mark Leonicio, Scott Hallinan, Steve H., Chris Garrett, Rick Lakes, Mike McCrae, Boeing 757 pilot, again from Madi Yoel, Paul Cleaver, Alan Lindos, Samuel Ramos, John Jack Wilson also contributed in the Super Chat, and Ryan there in Canada, Dave Hall, who became a member and joined our tech club here, Robert Cross, Tuska Nashville, 3D Everything, Robert Cross again, Chris's Channel of Technology, Badgerland Dan, Ryan in Canada again, and 3D Everything again. So for all of you helping to support the channel and putting that money towards the new camera, I'll be getting the camera sooner because of you. So thank you for that. And we'll have an update. When I order it, I'll let you know. So we have something to look forward to with the new video quality, or we'll judge for ourselves if there's any better video quality. Probably be next month at some point. In the meantime, that'll wrap it up for me for today. And again, if you have any inquiries on this computer, please reach out to me at my email address, carrie@carrieholzman.com. I do want you to only use that email address for business inquiries, saying, hey, how's it going? Please understand, I have so much going on. And I really want to help the people that are requesting that help, whether it's a new machine or upgrading or repairing a machine they have, and direct my time to the people who I can actually offer assistance to. And I appreciate that consideration. And I hope that eventually, at some point, I'll be able to help each and every one of you. We'll figure out, like I said, things we can do for people outside of the US with regards to some giveaways. It'll always be software, but still. And if there are software companies you think I should be partnering up with, like Malwarebytes or something, let me know why, what company and why, because I want to be very careful that I'm not becoming a big commercial channel like names who I won't name. But thank you for being a part of this community and hanging out with me for today. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a safe, happy weekend. I will see you all again very, very soon.
You're welcome.
Thank you to the camera person. And bye for now.